Olá, seja bem-vindo ao XamãsConet, Congresso Internacional de Xamanismo na internet. Agora, você assistirá à palestra Medicina do Beija-Flor, tema da palestra com Foster Perry, um mestre de uma nova espécie de autocura, o trabalho de cura do Beija-Flor, empregando a terapia da alma e a natureza curativa do som, do movimento e do trabalho corporal. Foster é formado pela Universidade de Georgetown e é autor do livro Quando um Raio Atinge um Beija-Flor e a Floresta Violeta, ambos publicados no Brasil pela editora Ground. Lembre-se, papel e caneta na mão, tablet ou celular para fazer suas anotações. Aproveite também e se inscreva em nosso canal, curta e compartilhe o link deste vídeo com seus amigos. Essa é uma das formas de você apoiar positivamente este projeto. Fique agora com a fala inspiradora de Foster Perry. Que as melhores energias cheguem até você.
XamãsConet, primeiro Congresso Internacional de Xamanismo na internet. Arrou, Metacuye Oyassim, por todas as nossas relações.
Shamanism relates to something before religion. It is a spiritual tradition that is unique to each person who awakens. A shaman is somebody who is a storyteller. And we see this world as full of stories. We follow the stories of the land, we follow our own stories, and we listen to other people's stories and the stories of the earth. The earth for us is Gaia, the giant serpent. And this giant serpent that we allow to come through our body and eat us, that serpent, that snake, is in fact something that we allow to transmute everything that we create, everything that's not in alignment with universal laws. A shaman always follows universal laws, because that's how we govern ourselves, and that's how we learn in our own lives, most of all, to become sovereign people. First, we must individually become sovereign. Then we can help our tribes. Then we can help all people. The most important reason why I became a shaman in this life, that's what other people called me, is because I like to serve community. A shaman is never alone. He is interconnected. She is interconnected to her community. And we choose our communities very, very carefully before we are born. Before we're born, we all know there is a life plan. We all create our own life plan. And that life plan we must live. That's why we call this life. We've already made a plan for our lives, and from now on, everything a shaman must do, we plan it. Even if it is spontaneous, it is still well planned. And we always say in shamanism, even though you dream, you must first plan your life and plan your dream. So before I came here, I decided that I wanted to have a mission. Because when you have a purpose in life, that's when you're fully living. That's when you're most alive, is when you have a purpose. And if you don't have a purpose in your life, remember that life has absolutely no meaning. You are the meaning maker of your life. And that's what shamans have learned. We create our own meaning. There are three great forces in the world: time, space, and energy, just like in physics. And shamans, of course, are what we taught the world was physics. We taught how to bend time, space, and energy. In the ancient world, like for the witches, the brujas, they used to talk about three ladies: Arya, who is space; Timia, who is time; and Potia, our potential. That is pure energy. So whenever we talk about the Black Madonna, she is the night sky like the goddess Nut in Egypt. She is black and akasha, but it's not really black. It's when all the colors mix to make a dark purple, the color of pure transmutation and the beginning of all form. And creation, this beginning that is both Mother and Father God for all shamans. She, the great creator, he, the great creator. She created all form out of the Akasha, out of that wonderful dark night. And he who does not move, he who is the still point that is the emanation of life and creation. And she is all movement. For she is Mother Earth, she's Mother Universe, she's Mother Ocean, she's Mother Sky. She is the Great Mother in all things, and she interpenetrates everything, and she connects us all together through her creation. So she wants us to understand all the other creations, the animals, all the beings we share this planet with. So for a shaman, we're never alone. And when the Christians, created, and the Jews, everybody created this ancient story. Even the Muslims have the story of the Garden of Eden, the great garden. The real story for shamans of the Garden of Eden is that Adam and Eve, and when they lived there, they said at one point, we don't need God anymore. We can do it all ourselves. We are completely self-sufficient and we want to learn on our own. We don't need you. So I think the real story of the Garden of Eden is Adam and Eve saying, we don't need you anymore. We don't need divinity. We don't need a higher power. We don't need the gods. We don't need that. We're going to do it ourselves. And I think that created a great loneliness. And I think that's what that story is all about. The moment of pain, of loneliness, and of development. First of all, the reason why we have illness, why we have pain, is to have depth. Otherwise, life is very shallow. It is too superficial. And without consciousness, everything is superficial. So we created illnesses. We created psychosomatic illnesses. We created the idea of karma. Karma doesn't really exist for a shaman. I am not under karma or anything like that. That was something brought over from the East that has a great meaning about cause and effect, and that everything we do has consequences, and that we are completely responsible for everything we create in our lives. Every thought, every action, every feeling. And that everything we create will come and meet us one day, at some point in our futures. But we are not in any way karmic beings. We have past lives because we want to develop, but we don't change so much over our lives. In fact, we only change ourselves. No one can change another person. Every time you try to change your family or develop your family, it never quite works. They have to want to do it themselves. This is the idea of personal responsibility and being influenced in a good way. In other words, being inspired. Shamans are here for many, many reasons. I have met many diverse shamans who have no students, who are just masters, who guard places. Like there is a particular point on the earth where there's no such thing as time. And if you go to that exact physical location on the earth, you never age. There were many great shamans who learned immortality. They learned that in Japan, they learned that in China. There were many, many immortals. And I think we must always remember these masters. For they mastered time, space, and they visited us, and they created incredible schools. When I go to Peru, or I go to Mexico, or I go to many places in the world, I see always the ruins of their schools, of our ancestors, who taught us universal law, who taught us music and the higher arts, and who made it a living school, and taught us that all of the earth is a library. And they taught us how to use it, and how to know the symbols, and how to build, and how to use all the arts, especially everything from growing our own food, towards how to live in harmony with the earth. And we can never forget that. And maybe that's why I became a shaman, because I can't forget. I can't forget what those people taught me. They taught me symbols. They taught me how to manipulate symbols in an incredible way. They taught me how to use the chakras in my body. They taught me how to use energy, that everything is energy. They taught me how to bend space and time, and how to sing, and how to live an exalted life of joy. So I made my symbol the golden hummingbird, because the hummingbird is not only love. And of course, I came here because, I was capable of love. And I asked for many, many years for a soulmate, for somebody that I could love. And I met many immoral people. I met many people who distorted love, or didn't even know what love was, or were experimenting. So they had many lovers, so they had many people, and they never stayed with one thing. They were always anxious, full of anxiety, always moving from one to the next. And for a time I got caught up in their lack of direction, and in something that I considered later not to be moral. But I discovered through them that I was a moral creature, and that I should never judge people for their morality, that I can accept everything. But that in my own heart, I wanted more from life. I wanted a more beautiful world and a better world. And I wasn't going to stop on the earth until that happened. And I wanted to make a contribution before I died that would be immortal. So I asked for somebody to love. And that's when I met my partner. And I said that I want to have this life be a teaching of tolerance. That I think it's important to tolerate gay people, to tolerate the emerging power of women, because they are the next leaders. I always say the first world was the world of the Great Mother. The second age was the world of the Great Father and patriarchy. The third age was the age of the Son, of Christ and Krishna and Buddha, the sons of God. But that has now ended. And we are now in the moment of the age of the daughter. The Great Mother, when I talk about Gaia, the great snake, she is bringing knowledge to her daughters. And spirituality now is the great awakening of women. That they become the next Shambhala warriors in their heart. That they fight for the planet, their own rights, and that they finally shake off the abuse sexually, mentally, physically, that they've endured for centuries. Men have endured the same abuse. Obviously, men are the ones who commit the most suicide in the world. Men who oftentimes, without direction of real fathers or the direction of kinder fathers, diverse fathers, who are not just macho, but willing in their warriorship to protect the feminine. And when that returns, when men decide to protect the feminine, then we have a very different world. So Gaia, that snake, just like in Peru, has to be eaten by the condor or the eagle. We always let the snake come through our body because it's alchemy. And as you know, food has changed on Earth. We now have Monsanto food. We have plastic food. We have so many things now because they want to feed people. And the original idea was correct. We have to feed these masses of people. But we didn't trust and have faith in abundance. We only have faith in control because we don't have divinity. We throw divinity out of the garden, so we don't believe in the abundance of the garden to produce enough, which is completely contrary to life. So we created, in a way, fake food. A long time ago, there was a wonderful plant geneticist named Darrell Langham, and he went to a field in South America, in Venezuela, and he talked to a sesame plant. And the plant talked back to him. And he revived the sesame crop. And that's what we need more in the world. That plants, that trees, that animals, everything for a shaman has a voice, has consciousness, has feelings, just like every animal. Can I destroy an animal? Not really. Can an animal sacrifice itself for me? Absolutely. And they do all the time. They do it willingly. Do I want to perpetuate that anymore and do rituals with animals? No. I personally cannot do that, because when you speak to these animals, you protect them just like you protect women and young girls when you protect the future. And those little boys who have been full boys, have been full of too many in society now, too much pride, too much men have been given, just because they are men. We make them spoiled, we give them so much. We kill girls just for them. And I think that is a great disservice. Men are capable, of course, of honoring the sun and becoming the sun as their shield. Or like many men who follow the bear and become healers, because they have introspection, because they see life from inside of them, and they choose to balance the masculine and feminine within them, and go into the cave of the seven sleepers and dreamers. Of course, in shamanism, we always have the five roots of what we must teach. One is mediumship. We must teach that everything comes through us. Healing comes through us. It doesn't come from us. It comes from the spiritual world, where we come from. We all come from the stars. Even the indigenous people all come from various planets. Many of us came through Orion. I came through Delphinus, the dolphin. We all came through from many star systems. The Pleiades, one of the central suns that we connect to is Alcyon on the Pleiades, to the center of the galaxy in Aldebaran, all the way through to Orion, where we go home. That's what the Christmas tree is. The Christmas tree is the star that we all make decorations like a spiral, because it's the pathway home after we die. And shamans are the gatekeepers of the crossroads. We, like witches, like voodoo, like Umbanda, like Candomblé, like all of us, like Santeria, all my brothers and sisters, we are guardians of crossroads. We contact the actual guardians of the crossroads. We guard them because they are the gateways between the worlds. They are doorways. And whether you invoke St. Peter to open all the doors by having a key that doesn't open any door, it opens every doors so that everybody, the minute they are born, have every possibility. You hold the key or the ankh of life. Just like in Egypt, the ankh. It's a key. In my own life, I met wonderful teachers who were prophets. And they taught me Kabbalah. The Kabbalah of Hermetics, the Kabbalah of Christ, the Kabbalah of Mary. Mary, who I consider the descendant of Pandora. Pandora, the first woman who created out of herself life. And we condemned it. And we said, because it has dark and light in it, there must be something wrong with it. But everybody fights the same battle of good and evil in their own heart. Good and evil exists within us. And every shaman must control their own demons. For the demons serve the angels, and they do their work on earth. And I have known many demons, and I have called them by names. And I have taken them out of bodies, and I have tried to find homes for them and send them on a different mission somewhere else to help them to evolve and grow. Because shamans are exorcists, many of them. And we help people once again to heal and to talk to the spirits and not let the spirits control them. Which brings us to the next idea is you have to be in control of yourself. You have to be in control of your own life. If you're not in control of your life, don't be a shaman and don't go into spirituality. Spirituality is self-control. And once you have control of yourself, really, I tell people, have a job. Do something. Just do one thing well in life. Finally, because many people have given up their power in marriages, in pleasing their families and pleasing their communities. but not becoming individualistic in the sense that they are independent. You cannot help your community unless you are independent. So shamanism, it is always about helping women, helping men to find their calling, to find their independence is their calling. To finally think for themselves. And yes, you're going to ask me lots of questions, and but eventually people have to learn to obey the true teachers, the higher teachers. We don't tell you that you accept everything we say. That's not what I mean. We're not authoritarians. But we want you to think for yourself in such a way that you finally let it in and you make the ground of being, the ground of finally listening. Because you have to listen to all of life. You have to listen to the ocean, or what we call Lady of the Lake, who was an incredible spirit. She was a great woman, created a very long time ago when there were the originals. And the originals were the beings that were first here. Some of them were giants. Of course they were giant. They were original beings. And they incarnate many, many times. Why do I love all the saints? I love the saints of many people. I also love Diana. I love also what the witches love. I also love what the shamans love. I also love the original beings. And these saints, remember, they incarnated in many, many traditions. My own spiritual guide, Saint Bridget. Who was she? She was, before that, the woman with the many breasts in Sumeria. She's on many statues. Sometimes your spiritual guide materializes and shows themselves to you, and you get very frightened. But they can materialize. Everybody is born with an angel. I have my 4 angels always around me because I have a mission. And second, I have my spiritual guides, always my Aztec warrior, so I'm here to always help Mexico. Even though Mexico is a harsh place, I will always be a Nahual. And third, my spiritual guide, who is Saint Nicholas, because I'm Greek, and Saint Nicholas loves the Greeks. And when you have saints as spiritual guides, because many, many times when I left my body, I was surrounded by saints. And though I was born Catholic, I left that church very early. I helped nuns and priests when I was 11 and 12 and 13 years old, doing laying on of hands. And I was a medium. So here we go back to mediumship. I allowed myself to be taken over by spirit, the highest spirit, the true spirit of life, the divine spirit, the Holy Spirit, the Mother of God. God has a mother. She has a wonderful garden, and all gardens reflect her garden here. And I walk with her in that garden. That's why I know my plants very well. Whether I'm using ruta to stabilize something, or I use all my different herbs in my work every day, and I talk to my herbs, and I gather my herbs, always in the moon cycles, always specific herbs at specific times of the day. And of course, herbs are my friends. And of course, I direct them. I tell them what to do, because an herb, a plant, is nothing without an intention. Even the witches call that spells and spell making. It's nothing more than prayers and giving intentions and telling the herb what to do, because everything has consciousness. Tell it what to do. That's why I tell people when they go on ayahuasca or San Pedro or any of the different mushrooms or peyote, there are ceremonies. The herbs teach you how, very formally, to ask them for what you want and how to direct them. Because they can do so many things, herbs. But they need intention. They need you to have a purpose, and they need you to be in control of your life and not be so afraid and so fearful of what you can't see. I've spent my whole life blind, feeling my way through life and energy to see. And if I can see in my own blindness, so can you. You can feel. So how do you connect to your spiritual guide? Is through your feelings. Your feelings are your spiritual guide. And the minute you deny all your feelings and you just go into your head and you follow your head, you're lost. But the minute you combine that intelligence that is in your skull and I love the skull and its intelligence, and you combine it with feeling, then your heart will open eventually. So what happened for me? I found my soulmate. I asked and asked so fervently. And I knew that I asked not to be alone here. I didn't want to just be another shaman, alone, consumed by my community. I asked for love, and the White Brotherhood, this incredible organization, which is now called, the Star Brotherhoods and Sisterhoods, because there were many women in that organization, so it's not just a brotherhood, and who are very connected to Shambhala, sent me a person to remind me the astrology of Nostradamus, which is my favorite astrology in the world. I do love Vedic astrology, but in the end I love Nostradamus. Nostradamus, who talked about Trump, Donald Trump even, he called it the trumpet, who blows his horn too loud and creates chaos in this world. I love Nostradamus. Of course, I read it in French, as he wrote it in French. I read it in Hebrew. I translate it. Because Nostradamus, like Leonardo da Vinci, are geniuses. Because they spoke many languages and they love to cloak things always in symbols, in codes, just as the alchemists put everything into codes. And if you understand universal laws, if you start to awaken, you will hear the codes, you will unravel secrets everywhere. From Rennes-le-Château to Glastonbury to Mount Shasta to Peru to one of my favorite places, Palenque, to all my favorite places around the world, to Mount Fuji that I also climb, to know their spirits, because the Apus, the spirits of the mountains, are so close to us as shamans that to be global shamans you must call and know all the Apus and all the mountain spirits. The spirits of valleys that help us to reflect, the spirits of lakes, the Lady of the Lake, and call them through the crossroads. The crossroad rituals are so important. For the African Americans, we call the Black Riders. We call those spirits at the crossroads, and I'm not afraid of them, because they are between life and death. And that's why shamans, many of my favorite shamans are what we would call the women who help other women when they give birth, the midwives, because they are in between life and death, because they bring children to the universal principles, because they dedicate and consecrate children, which is more holy to me than baptism. And if we are to get things and change things, we have to create these rituals again. In the 14th, 15th centuries, they murdered many, many curanderas, many, many women and men who were midwives. They murdered hundreds and hundreds of people who were just healers. So why did they kill so many healers? As a scapegoat? No, because they had the power of the plants. So what is so important now is to have the power of the plants again. That's why we go into the rainforest. That's why we protect shamans. That's why we keep wisdom keepers. That's why we contact the originals again through rituals. I don't care if you're doing a Bremerlin Solomonic ritual. I don't care if you're doing difficult rituals like Enochian rituals. I have done them all. I have invoked the Olympians, the angels, that are so difficult to control. Because people are writing their new Goetia, they're writing their new books, because a new myth is about to emerge. And there are days when I hear that new myth. And I want to honor it. So in my children's lifetime is a terrible disaster of ecological proportions. And the air won't be breathable on the earth. And people will have to live in domes even for a time. And then we must only take what is important, what is practical, and what will help us to survive. But it's not about survival. It's about thriving holistically inside of a closed environment. And this is an important transformation because we will also get rid of the element of criminals. Because we will get rid of criminals and rapists and, pedophiles and all these kind of people by throwing them outside of a dome where the acid rain eats them. And I know lots of people have seen that in the future, but it's real. And after that time, human beings are stronger. What doesn't kill us makes us stronger, right? And they are blending the different species together. All the diversity of the earth becomes a new kind of human being. And something incredible happens. Is that a one world government or something? That will happen. It's a one world Senate that I saw in the future. But everybody is represented. It's still a Senate. And there are no such things as nations, and they're not corporations. They live by principles. Universal principles. And then when all that has finally happened, then this world is just like the spiritual world. What shamans know is that this world is not real. This world is a copy of the spiritual world in which we get to play out as an experiment how to get along with all of the universe. How do we get along with people we really don't like? Because when you go to the spiritual world, you never have to see people you don't like. Yes. You only stay with your own kind and your own tribe. So that's why now people are staying with their own tribe. They're saying, I've had enough of people criticizing me. It's too much now, and I can't even go home for Christmas or Thanksgiving dinners anymore. I can't listen anymore. But remember this, my mother, who never lived her spirituality, who I loved so deeply, I took on her spirituality to live it for her, because that's why I loved her. That's what we do for our parents. I lived what she did not live. And my father, who was a very famous doctor and psychiatrist, neurologist, hypnotist, so many things, biofeedback, fantastic man, brilliant. He never lived the healer. He was a doctor who loved the medical establishment, who believed, chiropractors should be put in jail and all this, and inoculations and all these things that I never believed in. But he created, lots and lots of drugs. Because he thought it would give people relief. And I understand that. Many, many people find no relief for mental illness. So I understood my father compassionately. But I took on for him the healer so that his life could be fulfilled. What if that's what we do for our parents? We live their unlived lives. As a service to them, as obedience, as the greatest love. And they never have to know. And they never even have to understand it. So I became this shaman because I loved them. I know who I am. I have seen all my lives. In my last life, I lived in Shambhala. And I got there, as a very spoiled boy. A little French boy who had too much money. And many of my lives, we have mediocre lives where we have no money and we get through the poverty of the soul to find abundance, cornucopia. I've lived the lives, where you have to prostitute yourself and everything to realize the value and self-worth of a human being. And I've lived the lives of incredible wealth where God gave me too much. And I hope I have done well because I didn't believe in slavery. So the only reason I am on earth is because I, in my heart, could not believe in slavery. And if you know, in past lives, people had slaves. I had thousands. And I never agreed with it in my heart. And you have to understand, when you don't agree with a practice on earth, you don't come back because of karma. You come back because you want to make it right. Because you want relief for your own suffering of what you caused in other people. That's why you come back. You come back to make peace. And there's no peace in this world. That's what I learned. This is a world of conflict. There are moments of peace in that crossroad, but there's no peace here. That's why I meditate, that's why I do things, and I believe in active meditation, that you should meditate running. And now I have all these, very, very strong kids who can't sit still for 1 minute. So I tell them, we only do active meditation. And autistic kids, we don't talk. We talk through images and myths, and we talk through another language, through the animals, through feeling and empathy. So there are so many ways to communicate, and this is the time period of the media when we all learn how new forms of communication. And if you don't learn new forms of communication, you implode, you do not do well in life. You manipulate people. Sure, I manipulate people. I know exactly how to do that. But I try to manipulate people for good. And I think more people should not worry about manipulation and start to realize that maybe that's a life plan of some people. And when you learn how to directly stare at somebody's third eye and manipulate them, there are always consequences of that, but if you do it with a good intention, I think you can make a huge difference here. I think as a shaman, politically, when I read that Donald Trump kept, the campaign speeches of Adolf Hitler next to his bed when he slept, I cannot follow that. I follow my own heart. I follow my own intelligence. I follow my spirit in all things. When I see Native Americans in Lakota land being tortured and hurt and thrown off their lands when they're only there to protect water. And as you know, we're here to protect water. The great water reserves of the world, like in South America, is full of underground water, especially in Paraguay. We are here to protect these things for later, because we will use them. When you take the black oil of the earth, it is the blood of the earth, and that's why we inject and take blood out of ourselves with hypodermic needles that are made from petroleum. This is how everything is connected. Everything you do is connected. Everything you think and say has a consequence. And a lot of us, we don't even want to see anymore. We want to see the horrors of the world. We don't want to hear it anymore. People lose their sight, their hearing. They don't want to know. But have courage. Because for many people, the purpose of their life this time is finally courage. Do you finally stand up for what you believe in? Do you finally listen? Do you finally find your heart and live it truthfully? Do you finally find your own tribe, which is holistic? Because believe me, the world is going to separate between holistic people and everyone else. And 50% of the world is going to destroy themselves. So I don't really worry about ISIL or all these fighters in the Middle East. I don't really worry about all the fundamentalism, because in the end, those that are self-destructive will destroy themselves and each other. That is nature, and that is the higher frequency that goes into your ear. So I stay with the 50% that wants to improve, because evolution means to make better, to improve life. And revolution, there's been so many revolutions that I've been a part of. That silly man in France who had a dream to go to Shambhala, which I did, and I went from France to Tibet, which was a very long journey, with an incredible soul that I absolutely believe that I loved and I cared for, who gave me hell through the whole journey, and it wasn't easy, Le Comte de Saint-Germain. And he who taught me almost everything I know, and everything I believe in, and those Tibetan masters that taught me, and those yogis that taught me, and those Hermetic teachers, who Christ, my favorite Hermetic teacher of all time, Jesus, who later became Christ, who didn't follow himself, so he wasn't a Christian. Or Buddha, who didn't follow himself, who was not a Buddhist. When we get rid of these religious labels and we come back to the source of things, these universal truths, these Hermetic truths, these Vedic truths, because Vedas and the Hermetics came from one source. And that source came beyond this planet. The first time angels started to teach me as a shaman, and the angels started to teach me all their different methods, how they work, all their different symbols and how to evolve. Yes, angels teach shamans. There are shamanic angels. And who do you think taught the Kabbalists? What do you think Jesus taught? Kabbalah. And the magic of Kabbalah. And I want every shaman to learn that. Just like the witches do. I think we have to learn it. Because it's not a religion or anything. It is just a very good way to plan your life. Universally. And I think you have to learn that for your higher mind. As for your emotions and your heart, to finally find the truth, that's shamanism. Absolutely the guide of emotional intelligence. And why do I love Buddhism? Because they kept many of the old traditions, especially Tibetan Buddhism. Very dark and light. You decide. Of course, many Tibetans helped Hitler. And that's why they have such a deep karma now. But remember, things are changing so fast. You will have to, in this life, be practical and see through the illusions. I'm not saying any of the other world leaders are any better. But I do feel we have to have sovereignty and lead ourselves. I think that all of us, and I feel that all of us need the help of saints and gods. You know that I put all the gods into my body. In Egypt they call that nettering. I always invite the archetypes inside of me. And I do think that is the next way to absolutely live. You bring the archetypes, you define them, even though they are all one, you define them as all diversity, you invoke them into yourselves, and then slowly, slowly they develop through your organs your powers. And these powers that are so natural, like me, I like to talk to the dead. That's one of my favorite things as a medium. Because dead people, you know, sometimes they're quite good companions. There's a lot of very kind dead people. I know a lot of them don't pass on to the other side, but many of them do, and they visit us at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. I love when my ancestors whisper in my ear in the morning. They only say good things. They are the ultimate kindness and cheerleaders. I wish we were more like them. How much respect I have for the dead. You know, they love to come when I'm sleeping at night and say, you know, I died. So many of my friends died on my birthday. Just to tell me, of course we live, we always live, no one ever dies. We're constantly evolving, and by the way, it never ends, it's infinite. So shamans cultivate infinity. Of course we're interested in bending time. Time travel, leaving our bodies, learning what we call the temple sleep. How to lie down, have nobody touch you, and separate your different bodies. You have an astral body, you have an etheric body, you have many bodies, by the way, and you can separate them. And then you can travel to other planets. Yes, you can. You don't need a spaceship to do that. Just you have to go to Venus and see all the beauty and want to come back to your body. You have to be trained. You have to, first of all, not be afraid, and second of all, through this silver cord, you have to be trained to want to come back. You have to have a survival instinct to leave your body. And don't just leave your body to get the numbers of the lottery. I've known people who have done that and done it very well. But that's not the only way. There are much better ways. I know many people come to me and they said they want to find love, they want to find this, but if it's in your life plan, it will come, and we can definitely use the plans to make it happen faster. Everything you ever wanted in your life, if you learn the mastery of plans, the mastery of ritual, it's much easier to get. So that's why I say it's very important to harmonize with the earth. That's the medicine wheel. I always do my medicine wheel. And I do it on the earth. And I invoke the 4 directions and the elementals and I always invoke the kings and queens of each element. I love that the witches had dragons to protect them, so I have my own dragon. I am an ancient person who loves dragons. My dragon protects my fire, so that I cultivate fire in my life. The fairies always teach me about how to cultivate air and how to use my thoughts correctly, because the air spirits don't like human beings. So the fairies are an intermediary and help me. And their queen is Lilith, the great Lilith, that is the Sphinx in Egypt, the queen of the air. Or I contact the northern beings, the gnomes. All shamans have to know agriculture. We have to know the gnomes. We have to farm. We have to be farmers of souls. And we have to love the earth and plant corn or plant something. Because the plants themselves are us. We are highly evolved plants. That's what a human being is. And we were planted here exactly like plants. And we are growing. And do we grow well? And are we strong? And do all the insects and all the different birds, do they come to us? When I see Christos, my partner, when I watch him talking to the plants and talking to things, when he talks to little babies and when he talks to, he loves all those things. Little babies, he loves dogs, he loves cats. They all crowd around him. When little babies are looking at my aura and they're looking at all my lives, because all your lives are like movies inside of your aura. What do you think we're reading inside of a person? Clairvoyance is the second gift. You develop it, you cultivate it, and in the future there are schools for that. Yes, you can develop clairvoyance. Believe me, it is a fracture of the eye. It's a deformation. We all had it as children, actually. And third, we all have to cultivate this direct connection to divinity. That's what we call the sage in all of us. We have to have a direct connection. And finally, I think we all have to develop here not only the seer who sees through life and penetrates beneath the surface of things. The number one thing I learned is don't judge a book by its cover. So when I met Christos, it didn't matter that the person I loved was not necessarily my type. Wasn't necessarily the person I thought was the most beautiful, the most, incredible, blah, blah, blah. I trusted my feeling. I just knew it. And when you know things, that's when I feel you have power. And you know that people are going for power. They're going to world cities. They're going to look for their own power. And there's nothing wrong with that. You get more power through going to sacred sites. But you take energy from sacred sites because there's so much information there. Saint-Germain himself went to Mount Shasta, went to Peru, went to Shambhala, and left something there. So masters, he's just one of many, many masters of time who went to different sacred places and left things, and we can go there and we can open the package. And I think people should do that. And I learned how to make a sacred site wherever I am, how to invoke a column of light. Even the witches call that the hallow. That's what they celebrate on Halloween. It's to cultivate a column of light through your body, to radiate both light and dark. You think I believe in right and wrong? I really don't. You either do something too much or too little. But it's not about right and wrong. It's the middle way. It's balance in all things and elements. So when I go to the water spirits, whom I love too much, I am mostly water. I wanted to understand the moon finally in this life because I come from the sun. And that exalted place and no form. And I love the moon. And I've come to understand her more and more. And I know people believe that it's some spaceship, it's something that is created. I understand that. But the moon, her spirit, is something else. And all her queens. And the things they have taught me, you will never understand. But I hope you do, because I will teach the path of the moon. I never underestimate anything. And the moon, of course, which is closest to us and is half a woman because she has her moon blood. I am a man who's not afraid of the moon, even though too much moon makes a man crazy. But I will honor it because that's how we heal. We always get rid of a disease on the new moon. We always build a person towards success, towards the full moon. I love to dissolve all negativity, and believe me, I am a very tough shaman. I take the rapists in my neighborhood, I take all the dark people in my neighborhood, I take their photographs, I draw them, I get images of them, I wrap them, I bind them, and I put them in my refrigerator. And I freeze their asses. And I am definitely a badass shaman, and I always will be. Because I will not tolerate evil. And I will not tolerate it in my community. So of course I love Los Angeles, the place of the angels, the place of the fifth chakra of the media. Because I want to make a difference, I want to make a mark. And yes, it's too much comfort there. But finally, after all my lives, after all the things I gave up, through all the fasting, and my lives of giving up sex and giving up so many things, I said, forget it this time. Isa, the rune that I finally let go of, in the runes, I allow things to come to me easily, effortlessly, beautifully. I finally walk in beauty. And I'm not afraid of money, I'm not afraid of love and being touched. And I will not give completely into comfort. I will always be a teacher. And look, I travel all over the world even though I don't need the money. And I force people to value what I'm doing, so I charge them money. Because they don't really respect me if I don't. And believe me, I've tried to give it all away for free. And all I got was the worst kind of student. So I protect what I was taught. And I choose my students. They don't choose me. And I am ruthless in my love and in my attention and in my discipline. There is no shamanism without discipline. And discipline we must all learn, and we must finally stop being so distracted by everything in this world. Now we have so many internet distractions and people distractions and love distractions. Really, finally stop being distracted and focus. You can focus on many things. You can be multidimensional focus. But concentrate. I love Silva mind control. One of my favorite people in the earth was Jose Silva. He created Silva mind control, and I believe everybody should study that in schools when they're children. It is the simplest, easiest thing. It's visualization. I do believe in hypnosis. I think if you go very, very deep into hypnosis, you will start to speak the languages of your past lives. And we have recordings of people in our work who have done that. Ancient Sumerian and Egyptian. I believe, what is Atlantis? I know a lot of you want to know what Atlantis is. It was a place where there was an extraterrestrial civilization of Mars that lived among human beings. Very advanced, lots of technology. We still don't have it all now. Magnetic travel, all that, and many beautiful temples. And there were holistic people, 50%, and then there were the scientific elites. And those people are back. Those people are a scientific elite again. And what was the problem of Atlantis? They were jealous of extraterrestrials, and they wanted the extraterrestrial knowledge. They wanted the higher technology. And so the extraterrestrials gave it to them, these Mars people. They misused it because they didn't have harmony or ecology with the earth. They used it for their own self-gratification. They used it for themselves as an elite. And they destroyed everything, and 60 million people died in the course of 24 hours. And that's the racial memory that we all have of our own self-destruction and flood. But the blood of the true people always live on. The blood of what I would call the 13 clan mothers, the first original women, and their children, the ones that are true, like Pandora's blood that became Mary, the original hermaphrodites, who were the first 144,000 tribe on earth, most of whom do not live here anymore. And those hermaphrodites that still wake up in people when they're born, and no doctor should decide which sex a person should have. Because hermaphrodites are spiritual beings of a very high spiritual nature. And we shouldn't mess with that genetics. We are all evolving now. And you can't stop it with chemicals. You must detox yourself. Look, every day I take a teaspoon of coconut oil, or a teaspoon of red palm oil that was done ethically, or I take sunflower oil, that's enough. Or I start to detox myself with oils, or I start to change the way I eat. You know, Christos and I, we only eat vegan. We are now molecular vegans, so we're doing the next future of food. We eat raw food sometimes as well, and we have learned how to balance it. It's not for everybody, and I wouldn't say it's for everybody, but I've learned to do that. I am not a fanatic. But I know what works in me, and I know what feels lighter in my skin. I know the alchemy of food, nutrition, and I believe people should be nutritionists. I think they have to learn food now, and they also have to learn how to cultivate, like Bill Mollison, like so many people, Gabriel Howarth, all the people I love who wanted to change agriculture. And I know there are many problems in California with the water and agriculture, and it is a tremendous test. And yes, I do lots and lots of water dances, and it does rain for a little while. It will rain again, but we will learn how to live without water. So, soul retrieval, or how to bring your soul back. How do you bring your soul back, and why do people leave their body so much? Because they're traumatized. Because parents don't see them, because they betray their own children, because we make contracts and then the parents say, I'm not going to change for you, I'm not going to develop, and I'm not going to have peace. And people can do that. They can get off their life plans, they can take a detour, and you can be incredibly betrayed many times in your life. And they are like swords in your back. And slowly, slowly we forgive. Slowly, slowly we heal. And then we return back to our bodies. And we start to want to live again, but not in the old way. We transform and we help others in the same condition as ourselves. For trauma, the wound opens up the way, and the way in which we will live, and we will evolve. So we've had many revolutions, but they don't amount to anything without evolution. And remember, as a shaman, please learn to get along with other shamans. Learn to share knowledge, because shamans are travelers. I am a cosmic traveler. I am a time traveler. I've known those little children who age until they're 11 years old, and then they're old people already. They already teach us that they are the real masters of time. That everything is so possible here, that you can choose anything here, even the darkest things. And I'll never judge you for that. I won't judge you for Baphomet or anything you do. I just don't want you to be ignorant. Because the greatest regret when people die is their ignorance. That they didn't get exposed to spirituality or to the teaching. So this is the life when you can't complain anymore. You are being exposed, and that's why we're doing this TV show. You have no more excuses for why you didn't meet a teacher and you didn't learn. And you have the teacher within you, that is the wolf. Everybody follows their inner wolf, their inner wild nature, their inner teacher. Back to the source within them that opens up the Shambhala warrior, and then they fight for what they believe in, ecologically. We shamans created ecology with the witches, with all these different traditions. And we are back, and we're not going anywhere. We are the future. Oh.
Gostou da palestra? Se você chegou até aqui, provavelmente sim. Sou Samuel Souza de Paula, idealizador do XamasConet, Congresso Internacional de Xamanismo na internet, e autor do livro Práticas Bioxamânicas, Despertar das Capacidades Interiores. E é uma alegria saber que está prestigiando este evento, onde grandes condutores xamânicos compartilham as melhores práticas para o reconhecimento do seu poder pessoal, manter melhores relacionamentos, desenvolver sua espiritualidade e ampliar sua consciência com dicas, jornadas, segredos e um conteúdo imperdível. Deseja apoiar e se beneficiar ainda mais com esse projeto? Acesse ao site XamasConet.com.br e informe-se, que as melhores energias cheguem até você. Arro, Mantaku Yoyasi, por todas as nossas relações.